Regular board meeting will now be come to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Director Baez.
Present.
Director Falk.
Here.
Director Harris.
Present.
Vice President Miller.
Here.
Director Phillips has notified our office that she will be arriving late to the meeting, as well as Director Voss. Director Woodward. Here. President Sane.
Here.
We have 6 present.
The chair will now ask the secretary to lead us in the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. The chair invites any members of the audience who wish to participate to do so, and asks that those who do not wish to participate please remain silent during the recitation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience. Thank you. Also, Madam Clerk, before we begin, I'd like to recognize that we have Alderwoman Malele Coggs in the audience this evening. Alderwoman. Before we begin our agenda, the chair will ask that we share in a moment of silence to commemorate the passing of Betty Baker, a retired general education assistant that worked at the Thurston Wood campus, who passed away on February 2nd. Russell Gamble, a retired teacher who worked at Hampton School, who passed away on February 7th. Betty Holt, a former MPS secretary in the Office of the Superintendent, who passed away on Monday, February 11th. James Turner, a teacher who retired from Shoals Middle School, who passed away February 13th. Harvey Scales, a well-known musician here in Milwaukee, also a North Division alum, soul singer and a musician, passed away on Monday, February the 11th. And Louis Lamprecht, a retired from Facilities and Maintenance Carpenter Shop, who passed away on February 9th. May we have a moment of silence. Thank you. As this is the regular monthly meeting of the board, in accordance with board rules, the board will not be taking any public testimony on any items during tonight's meeting. Just as a reminder, Robert Rules of Order dictates that all comments shall be directed to the chair. Also, any questions or requests, including those from the public, board members, or the administration, are to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. For the safety of all and to ensure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidating tactics of any kind will not be tolerated during board and board committee meetings. Anyone engaged in such words or actions will immediately be asked to cease. If such behavior continues, a recess will be called, and anyone participating in these actions will be removed from the meeting before the meeting resumes and will not be allowed to rejoin the meeting. Also, no one other than board members, the staff of the superintendent's office, the Office of Board Governance, and the Office of Accountability and Efficiency, and those who have been invited to present or participate in items of business will be allowed on stage before, during, or after meetings of the board and its committees. Also, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting esb.milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Now, Madam Secretary, let's begin. What's our first item of business?
The first item of business on tonight's agenda is the Excellence in Education Award.
Each month, the Board of School Directors recognizes an outstanding school, student, staff member, parent, or community member for a display of excellence, achievement, or innovation that may serve as an example to our schools and our entire community. This month, the Milwaukee Board of School Directors is proud to present the Excellence in Education Award to Ms. Helen J. Wallace. As Ms. Wallace is coming to the stage, Helen J. Wallace had a full and productive career as a dedicated employee of Milwaukee Public Schools with 35 years of service. That deserves a round of applause. Ms. Wallace is a proud MPS product, having graduated from West Division High School, which is now called the Milwaukee School of Arts. In addition to her education at Milwaukee Area Technical College, she received a bachelor's degree from the Milwaukee Theological Institute. Ms. Wallace's strong work ethic, intelligence, and ability to work effectively with all people caught the attention of many in the professional world, starting with a work-study program at the Pabst Brewery that she participated in during her senior year at West Division. After graduating, she was the first African-American student hired as an administrative assistant by Pabst. The company was so impressed with Helen's hard work that they agreed to pay for her tuition to Milwaukee Area Technical College. That's wonderful. Yes, it was. Save on those student loans, right? In 1967, she was recruited by MPS to serve as an assistant to the librarian at Rufus King High School. When Pabst learned of her impending career move, one of the company vice presidents offered her a promotion as well as her own office and staff. Man. Helen decided that MPS was the better career move for her, and she has never regretted her decision. MPS proud. Milwaukee Public Schools has always been near and dear to Helen's heart. Helen was promoted many times as an employee of MPS and accomplished many firsts during her career. In 1987, she was asked to apply for and was hired as the first African-American woman to serve in the Office of the Superintendent at MPS Central Service as the Executive Administrative Assistant to the Superintendent. That deserves a round of applause. Helen served under a total of 8 school superintendents until 2001. Her final assignment with MPS before retirement in 2002 was an administrative assistant in the Department of Student Services. Ms. Wallace has been an active member of her community. She has been a member of Tabernacle Baptist Church since she was 12, volunteering with the youth department, the children's choir, the usher board, and the adult choir, the youth director, new member orientation, and Sunday school and vacation Bible school facilitator, among many other activities. She has also done extensive volunteer work within the community, serving as an officer of the Top Ladies of Distinction, a member of Common Ground, the Sherman Park Community Association, and the Breast Cancer Society's Reach to Recovery program. She is a 3-time cancer survivor and a world traveler. Yes. The Milwaukee Board of School Directors recognize and honor Helen J. Wallace for her dedication, outstanding leadership, and commitment to excellence on behalf of the students of the Milwaukee Public Schools. Dr. Posey, will you please do the honors? And we're going to ask Ms. Wallace to say a few words. And Madam Clerk, I just want to note that Director Voss has joined us.
So noted.
Good evening,
Good evening.
President Sane, members of the board, and Superintendent Posley. My name is Helen Wallace. The other day, I received a congratulatory note from a former colleague. It read in part, "The professional administrative assistant whose legacy for establishing and serving at the highest standards is without peer. MPS benefited from your professional and ethical service. You are the recipient of MPS's Red Apple Award, but I say Golden Award." And that was from a dear friend and colleague of mine. And she summed it up by the acronym for golden. She said, G, I was godly guided. O, very optimistic. L, loads of fun. D, dedicated. E, exemplary. N, noteworthy. And in response to these very, very kind and thoughtful words, I add that it was my pleasure to serve with colleagues who shared my passion for the well-being of the students and their parents who entrusted them in our care. Thank you, Tina Just, for being my go-to lady. I truly, truly enjoyed working with you over the years. Thank you, Board of School Directors, Superintendent Posley, for this honor. I don't know how well-deserved it is, but I'm very appreciative. Thank you very much.
Comments by board members. Director Woodward.
Yes. I just would like to say that Mrs. Wallace, not only a friend of mine and my sister in Christ, but she didn't stop working in 2002. Each year at Tabernacles Back to School rally, she always invited me there to do registering students to come to MPS, and she constantly was there, seeing that children got gifts and all the type of things that she did in her community. Also, she and I are a member of Church Women United, which we work with and have a meeting tomorrow.
Yes, we
So, but I enjoy working. I think she's a marvelous person, very humble, because until I read this article, I did not know she had worked for MPS. All I know is she was contacting me to come, but I didn't know she had that type of a career with MPS. And I just want to congratulate you for the many years you served, and thank you for all you've done and continue to do.
Thank you so much.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Additional board members? Director Harris?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know how appropriate this is, but Ms. Wallace, I want to thank you for all the work that you've done over the years, but I also want to thank Linda Jackson Conyers from the Milwaukee Times
Yes.
for introducing me to you and your career at MPS, because I had no idea. And thank you for being here, and congratulations on your award.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Additional comments by board members? If not, let's give Ms. Wallace another round of applause.
Thank you. See you in the morning. And still do.
Yes, I can tell.
Appreciate everything you've done.
As Ms. Wallace is making her way off the stage, please give her another round of applause. This being Black History Month, our young folks have been pretty busy in the community doing some great things, which brings us to our next item, Madam Clerk.
The next item is the commendation and acknowledgement of the winners of the 35th Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Writing, Art, and Speech Contest.
The chair will, the administration, to introduce some of the winners for the 13th Annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Writing, Art, and Speech Contest. At this time, the members of the board wish for you to take your seats in the audience so we can have a firsthand look at what our young folks have been doing and showcasing, representing the district. So please take it away.
Okay, I'll get started while they're taking their seats. Good evening, President Sane, Vice President Miller, directors, Superintendent Posley, family, and community members. My name is Debbie Keither, MPS Manager of Literacy, and I am pleased to be here tonight for this very special night. The 35th annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. birthday celebration, January 20th, 2019, was a very momentous occasion. The theme, Celebrating the Legacy for 35 Years, was a unique and most fitting theme, which captured how the legacy of Dr. King has shaped the lives of our children. Over 4,000 Milwaukee Public School students participated in our speech, writing, and art preliminary contests this year. 67 of the 2018-19 winners from those contests were MPS students. On that note, too, I'll remind you, if you have not seen samples of artwork directly outside of the auditorium, be sure that you take a look at that before you leave tonight. This gave our children a platform to research Dr. King's life and his beliefs, words, and actions, connecting it to their own experiences and others, their families, schools, neighborhoods, and the world. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an activist committed to peace, justice, and equality. When Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke the words, "I have a dream," he opened a dialogue encouraging us to live in harmony with one another. His dream was a powerful one, and he followed that vision of overcoming with dedication and faith. Every dream must be accompanied by action. We cannot hope that the universe will transpire to bring about our goals. We must act, pursue, and above all, live in faith-filled awareness. We are joined tonight by several MPS students. We have 5 with us tonight. And some of them have even traveled from Madison to be with us here tonight. They went to Madison first and did some of their speeches there, and now are trekking over here to be with us tonight. So we know you are very tired, and we are so grateful that you're spending the time with us tonight. They will share their vision through their voices, and just like me, you will know after hearing their voices that they are truly dedicated and purposeful toward achieving their goals and living out their dreams. I'll introduce the first speaker, who is Kaylee Phillips. She was our first place winner from Golda Meir, grade 4.
Good evening. I am Kaylee Phillips. I am a 4th grader at Golda Meir School, and this is my speech. Legacy. What do you think would happen if Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did not have his legacy? What do you think would happen if he was not born? Dr. King's legacy was to help people. He didn't fight with his fists, but with his words. If it was for Dr. King, I would have met my friends or gone to my school because it used to be an all-Jewish school. If it was for Dr. King, even if my school wasn't an all-Jewish school, it still wouldn't be integrated, and I would have met all my amazing friends and received a great education. Dr. King once said, "I look to a day when people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the contents of their character." My best friend has known me for a short time. She's a Caucasian and I'm an African American. We are allowed to be friends because of Dr. King. The college that my mother went to is called Fisk University. When sit-ins were happening, most college students from Fisk were there and organizing the sit-ins. You may not realize it, but the sit-ins were very organized by African American college students in general. This went on from February 13th to May 10th, 1960. "The time is always right to do what is right," Dr. King once stated. This helped blacks with the rights of eating where they want. In 1968, my grandmother, Velma Louise Coggs, marched for housing rights with the NAACP. She wasn't even in the South. She was here in Milwaukee. She was only 22 and she still marched for almost a year. That was the same year Dr. King passed away. Even after Dr. King passed away and Jim Crow laws ended, Caucasians still treated African Americans unfairly. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Dr. King's legacy helped us stop Jim Crow laws. His legacy didn't help us with just that. He also helped us in many ways we see our world come. Still today, we deal with problems we had to fix, but we shall overcome. We shall overcome. For Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Let his legacy live through us all. Thank you.
Wow, Kaylee, thank you so much. Very impressive. Our next speaker is Janiyah Williams. She was our first place speech winner from Golda Meir, grade 8.
My name is Janiyah Williams, and I'm an 8th grader at Golda Meir School. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an activist committed to peace, justice, and equality. As a visionary leader of the civil rights movement, King fought for racial and economic justice for the oppressed. But yet, after all of that hard work and determination, we still see injustice, especially towards our Black communities. So, let me break this down for you. We see these Black men unarmed, so why shouldn't they be alarmed when police are coming up to them, putting them in harm? Sorry, my bad if I was taking it too far, but my people are disappearing faster than an agent from State Farm. I see the news and I flinch. Black kids getting shot down for sleeping on the bench. I can't breathe, just like I can't believe all these parents have to grieve. From Eric to Trayvon, everything's gone wrong, all because we forget that we were all made equal. Made is one, so why can't we find the strength to just put down the guns equal? All of God's people put on this earth as brothers and sisters, misses and misters, unalarmed, unharmed, and unarmed. Unarmed, adjective, not equipped with or carrying any weapons. You heard that? No weapons. Innocent Black people getting killed when they aren't carrying weapons or trying to harm anyone. But then again, it's hard for us to be unarmed when they see our Blackness as a weapon. This is ridiculous. I shouldn't be afraid of being Black. I shouldn't be afraid that when I'm walking down the street, I'm going to get shot. I was told that when I was ready to speak, then to speak, and not to let anyone make me be quiet. So right now, I'm ready to speak, and I need you to listen. There is no reason why me being Black or anyone being different should be a problem to you. Dr. King said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But no matter what you do, you have to keep moving forward. It's 2019, so we need to keep moving forward. No matter if you're Black, white, red, or yellow. We need to be united so we can make a change to this world. Dr. King said he had a dream, and I have a dream too. We need to learn that guns are not a solution to everything. So let's celebrate King's legacy in this day and every day. Just because I'm Black and I have a hood on my head, that doesn't mean I'm going to shoot you dead. Just because I'm Black and I wear earbuds, that doesn't automatically mean that I sell drugs. Just because I'm Black and I wear Timberland boots, that doesn't automatically mean I'm going to walk up and shoot. Maybe I'm Black, but that doesn't mean I'm danger. Even though to you, I might be a stranger. I'm tired of all the stereotypes and all this constant hate. Instead of hating, maybe you should just motivate. Why don't you think about my strengths like poetry and maybe even dance? So quick to judge me without giving me a chance. I can do hair, sing, and I have fashion sense. But you're so quick to put down my Black excellence. The hate in this world is so sick and needs medicine. But I'm okay because I'm dripping in melanin. I can speak with pride and I don't need a crowd. And I'ma say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud.
Powerful. Thank you, Janiyah. Our next speaker is Brandon Gordon from Cooper School. He was our 3rd place winner in grade 7.
Hello, my name is Braden Gorton from Cooper School. It has been 50 years since Martin Luther King Jr. broke down the barriers of segregation. He left a legacy of confronting injustice through nonviolent methods. Martin Luther King Jr. changed America for the better, and our generation must continue to fight against injustice. What is the most deadly injustice that happens at schools? The answer is school shootings. We must take greater action to confront this problem and stop the senseless killings. In May 2018, a school in Texas was evacuated because of a school shooting. The shooter's name was Demetrius Cortez. Demetrius used a shotgun to shoot at students in a classroom and went through the school's hallway. He planted homemade explosives around the school and the parking lot. In total, 10 students died and 13 were injured. Why did Demetrius commit a school shooting? The answer is bullying. A survivor of the Texas shooting admitted that Demetrius was emotionally bullied. According to the survivor, Demetrius was constantly teased by students and coaches. If someone had the courage and conviction to stand up to Demetrius's bullies, maybe Demetrius would have followed a more peaceful path. Demetrius is not the first victim of bullying who committed a school shooting, and he won't be the last. If you see someone being bullied or teased at school, do something to stop it or do something to help the victim. Follow Dr. King's footsteps by confronting this injustice. No matter how much we do to stop bullying, there are going to be people who decide to shoot up a school. That's why we need better planning and preparation to stop these shooters. Too often, schools are easy targets and students are at the mercy of savage killers. This injustice needs to stop. Some schools are doing everything they can to stop school shootings. In these schools, students must wear clear backpacks, carry identification badges, and walk through metal detectors. These schools have the right idea. Even one of these safety measures will make schools much safer from shootings, and innocent lives can be saved. Gun violence at school is the deadliest injustice, yet too little has been done to confront this very serious problem. School should be a place where students go to get an education, not a place where students are afraid to be shot. Like Martin Luther King Jr. once said, people fail to get along because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they have not communicated with each other. We must stop this vicious cycle and put an end to school violence. We must carry the torch held by Martin Luther King Jr. and fight the good fight against this epidemic of school shootings. Thank you.
Okay, Amelia Bell from Rufus King High School is our first place winner in grade 9. She'll be next.
Some of you may ask, why is she clapping? And to answer your question, I'm clapping to commemorate the 35-year-long legacy celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In fact, it's a reason for us all to be clapping. Hello, my name is Amelia Bell. I am in the 9th grade, and I attend Rufus King High School. In 1983, exactly 35 years ago, former President Ronald Reagan designated the third Monday of every January to be a federal holiday honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Did you know that Atlanta, Georgia, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin are the only cities to celebrate Dr. King for the past 35 years? Stated by Fox News. I think Wisconsin does it better. Let's just take a moment to really think about how King has contributed to our nation. and how he has helped us reach our goal of getting to the mountaintop and reaching the promised land. According to the Seattle Times, the promised land was where you did not have to march for your dignity. It was where you did not have to sing for your freedom. It was where there was no need for speeches to verify your humanity. The promised land was that sacred place where all of God's children will stand as equal on level, fertile ground. According to Dr. King, the promised land is a place we will reach someday. But after 35 years of celebration, and after 35 years of action, such as hashtags, movements, and protests, we have not yet made it to the place that Dr. King said we would arrive. Because today, I still see parents unable to provide for their children because of the lack of resources. I still see Milwaukee Public Schools' dropout rate rise and funding lowered. Last year, the theme for this contest was Take a Stand for Truth and Justice. I talked about juvenile car thefts and the negative effects it had on the community, followed by their slap on the wrist. In 2016, the theme was We Shall Overcome. I discussed the poverty, racism, and violence weaknesses in our community. Back in 2016, 9-year-old Zalea Jenkins was shot by a stray bullet while sitting in her own home, one day before her 10th birthday. And yet, in 2018, I still seen a 13-year-old girl shot by a stray bullet that pierced through her window. A situation that just happened a few months ago. A situation that is sore to the community. A situation that seems all too familiar. Gunshots, police lights, news reporters, and yellow tape every single night. May Zalea Jenkins and Sandra Parks both rest in peace. Parents, imagine sitting in your room, minding your own business, thinking nothing of it, followed by a kiss and a see you in the morning. But the morning of having your child present at the breakfast table never happened. You heard the gunshot, a familiar sound to you. You think nothing of it until your child comes in your room and, like Sandra Parks says, "Mama, I'm shot." This infuriates me. We have to do better. Dr. King died for our freedom. We have to do better. Each year, there are thousands of MPS students who put their hard work into speaking for change. We have to do better. Congratulations on 35 years of celebrating the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and 35 years more to come to making it to the promised land. By all saying together, we have to do better. We have to do better. Thank you.
And our final speaker tonight, and before I introduce her, I just want to once again say thank you to all the speakers because we really are very impressed with your dedication, the hard work, and your skills for putting this message forward. So we're very proud of you. And our final speaker tonight is Angela Gordon from Reagan High School. She was our third place winner, and she's in grade 9.
Hello, my name is Angela Garton from Ronald Reagan High School. The world is constantly evolving. Each and every year is different from last. However, there is not a supernatural force driving these changes. Actually, the gradual changes from within our society are caused by none other than us. People just like you and me who believe in fighting for change to create a better world. People who follow in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s footsteps and want to better our own community. In the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the time is always right to do what is right. This past summer, former Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced a new zero-tolerance immigration policy. In short, the policy decreed that all illegal crossings of the border would result in federal criminal prosecution. But what would happen to the children traveling with their families caught within this mess? Mr. Sessions decided to keep the children in detention centers while their parents, family, and friends were sent away to jail. He chose to separate over 2,000 children from their families. Children who were gripped in incomprehensible fear as they pondered when the next time they would see their families would be. Parents who were worried sick over their children, if they were safe, if they were okay. And while it may not have been right for these immigrants to illegally cross the border, they are still human. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "We may have come in different ships, but we're in the same boat now." My mom is an immigrant from Central Asia, and she is just like every other person from within this room. So just imagine, for a second, having your child taken away from you and not knowing where he or she is, or being separated from your parents in a new and foreign place that you have never encountered before. And while the images that just flashed across your mind may seem like scary fantasies, it was a reality for thousands of children and parents each and every day. Dixiana, a 10-year-old girl from Central America, was subject to this cruel treatment when she was separated from her mother and forced to stay within a detention center. Upon arrival, the building was so filled up with residents that children had to sleep sitting up on the cold concrete floor. The food given was cold and raw, almost inedible. Many of the children, including Dixiana, cried on a daily basis, saddened by the absence of their loved ones. This inhumane act of separation was not an effective way to combat illegal immigration. Milwaukee has continued to follow in the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. for the past 35 years. This year, citizens of Milwaukee and other cities across the country took Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s message to heart in response to the zero-tolerance immigration policy. Citizens held a rally march in downtown Milwaukee. By paralleling Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s own marches of protest, those within our own city tried to make a change. And this one act of protest, combined with similar acts across the country, helped push America in the direction of change. Soon after, a majority of the separated children were reunited with their parents and families. Change is not something that naturally happens on its own. If we want change, we will have to use our voices to further our cause and contribute to our ever-evolving society. Those within our own community have already begun fighting to change our world for the better. Yet there is still work to be done, and together we will continue this fight. Thank you.
Aren't our young people wonderful? Give them a hand. I just want to thank everyone who was involved in helping to prepare these young folks to be able to express their creativity and their thoughts around, you know, the words of Dr. Martin Luther King and what he meant to this nation. So to the teachers and to the parents and to those young people and to our administration, and thank you for all the hard work you've done to set the stage for this evening. Thank you very much. All right, Madam Clerk, can you we got Director Phillips has joined us.
So noted.
So noted. All right. Madam Secretary, what's our next item of business?
The next item of business on tonight's agenda is the approval of the minutes of the January 2019 special and regular meetings of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors.
Do members of the board have any corrections for the minutes of January 2019? If not, the minutes will be approved as printed. Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the superintendent?
Yes, Mr. President, we have two communications from the Superintendent of Schools. The first communication is the monthly report of the superintendent. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Okay, good evening, Dr. Posley.
Good evening, President Sane and members of the board. Keith Posley, Superintendent of Schools. This evening, I would like to begin my report by commending our talented students who served their award-winning speeches for the Dr. Martin Luther King Annual Speech Writing and Art Contest. Congratulations also to Rufus King teacher Kelly O'Keefe Betcher. She was awarded the Marcus Center 2019 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Teacher of the Year Award for her active involvement in promoting and encouraging her students to participate in the yearly speech writing and art contest. I would also like to thank all of those individuals who planned and participated in Black Lives Matter Week. The event, hosted by the Milwaukee Public Schools and our partners, had a broad participation, including families, staff, students, board members, and community members. The event provided opportunities to engage in solution-based discussions. This month, some of my schools visited were the Academy of Accelerated Learning, James Madison Academic Campus, Golda Meir, Fernwood, and North Division. At Golda Meir, Dr. Vince Bertram, the president and CEO of Project Lead the Way, and members of my team had the pleasure of visiting classrooms to view student STEM work. I was so impressed by the high-level problem-solving and creativity illustrated by the students' projects. The Milwaukee Public Schools City Review was another excellent opportunity to highlight our student athletes with one exciting game after another. Congratulations to Hamilton, Madison, Obama, Riverside, Rufus King, Vinson, and Washington High School for their skillful play and sportsmanship. There are many student awards and recognitions in my report to include. 9 of our students received scholarships as a part of the 34th Annual Black Excellence Award. Milwaukee French Immersion students excelling in the International French exam, and a great showing of our schools at the Mad Hot Tap competition. At this time, I would like to provide a brief update regarding one of our charter non-instrumentality schools, Nova Tech. The current contract will expire on the last regular scheduled school day of the 2018-19 school year. On January 14th, we received a written communication from Trans Center for Youth requesting non-renewal of their contract. We will work with Nova Tech staff to ensure a strong finish to the school year. We will also work with the families to find placement for the 2019-20 school year. I conclude my report this evening. We will provide a following update that I promised on February 12th on our special board meeting regarding adjustments to the 2018-19 school calendar as a result of the school closure due to inclement weather. I have with me this evening Leah Sculpture, who is going to walk us through the update. Leah.
President Sane, Vice President Miller, members of the board, Leah Sculpture, Interim Chief Human Resources Officer, here to provide an update for the hourly workers who provide their services to the district. We'll start with food service and the food service assistants. They have the opportunity to make up 4 additional days of lost time on February 19th, April 2nd, May 23rd, May 24th, June 13th, and June 14th, depending on which calendar that they're on, be it early or traditional. And the difference there are the May and June dates, depending on those calendars. They will also have the opportunity to add an additional paid day after the last day of student attendance to do the additional cleaning and preparation for close down that's required. They will also have the opportunity to add to their existing shifts during their regularly scheduled work days to add on time to that already scheduled work day. Then for food service assistants in charge and food service manager trainees, they will have 1 day added for the makeup of lost time on May 24th, which becomes a new work day as schools are open. Food service assistants in charge and the manager trainees will also have the opportunity to make up an additional day after the last day of student attendance on May 28th or June 17th. They are being provided the opportunity for a paid training day and a paid work in your kitchen day during spring recess. And they also have the opportunity to add take on existing shifts during their regularly scheduled work days as well. And then for our building service helper ones, they do already work on those professional development days that we had, and they do work an 8-hour day already. So we are building in additional project cleaning days on Saturdays for them to be able to make up additional time. We are going to make sure that we have at least the opportunity for a minimum of those 48 hours of straight time or the equivalent amount of time at time and 1/2 for people to make up.
All right, thank you. In regards, administration to Novatech, we're asked that you provide that information to the board in a written communication. You can do that for us, please.
President Sane, members of the committee, I'll be more than happy to do it with my updates for tomorrow.
Thank you. Questions by board members, Director Falk.
Yes, in regards to your report, what you've had the last few months is groups of high school students come before us, and you did not have any tonight. I'm hopeful that that's just a lapse of this month for whatever reason, and that we're going to be seeing them come back, because I think they've offered a lot to us.
President Sane, members of the committee, absolutely, they will be returning, but tonight we heard student voice from our young people who did the Dr. Martin Luther King writing contest, and we had on slate a total of like 16 students, and so we are going to bring our high school students back on next month.
Thank you.
Additional questions for Superintendent's report? Director Bias.
Just, Director Sine, thank you. Just going back to the issue of the calendar a moment, I just wanted to, I recall that in our discussion last time, we talked about making sure that we made whole to low earners the opportunity to work the hours that will make them whole, given the fact that they lost those days. And it seems from your report, and we don't have a written report, but at least the report suggests to me that they will. But I just wanted to get you to speak a little bit more about this issue of adding to the shifts so that they, in fact, if people have other jobs and other commitments, that the administration works to make that happen, and that message gets out to everybody in the administration and all the schools. Could you speak to, how are you going to do that?
Administration.
Director Bias, President Sane, Vice President Miller, members of the board. We are going to have this in place through the duration of the rest of the school year, and people will be able to choose from those various options. Obviously, it's not forced. People will be able to choose what works for them. The hope with food service was to be able to provide some different options. So food service and nutrition services are funded through the meal program. And so when meals aren't being served, they're actually not generating that revenue. So we had to make sure that we could also fund everything. So we're providing as many options as possible on days when meals aren't being served, and then also allowing people to pick up, breakfast, lunch, or dinner shifts that they otherwise wouldn't be working. And we are trying to make sure that between now and the end of the school year, there are enough of those options to equal up the total of those 48 hours that were missed. And then with building service, they have often had project cleaning days on Saturdays. And once again, most of those workers would be working at time and a half at that time. So their equivalent amount of hours worked is actually less that they actually have to make up to receive that same amount of pay that they missed. The leadership in nutrition services and facilities and maintenance, and I will be working on a much more detailed plan with all of those shift options available to all of the workers. Once we have those things, we can get those more updated as well. But we are hoping that this will provide enough of those opportunities to reach that. I also did message to the leadership in those two areas that if we do find occurrences in which these are not working for people, to let me know, and we will try to figure out some kind of alternate plan. We hope that the main plan works for most people, but if not, we were committed to making sure we could make people whole, so we will work with someone on an individual basis if necessary, if none of these options work for them.
Got a follow-up?
Yeah, just one follow-up. So, yeah, it sounds very good. And you will be the contact person. This is really a developmental kind of a plan in many ways, because you want to make sure that people are, in fact, making up their hours. So I get that feeling. And is that what I'm hearing?
Director Baez, President Sane, Vice President Miller, I will be the contact person if someone would like to have a further follow-up or question about that. The leadership in facilities and maintenance and nutrition services already have calendars and plans ready to be implemented. We were waiting to make this address to the board before we move forward, but they are ready to let their staff know about all of the options available, and they have an organized plan.
Director Voss, followed by Vice President Miller.
Thank you, President Sane. I have a question from the perspective of the student and family. I know we've only had one makeup day that was formally scheduled as a day off. Can you just tell us how that went? And really, did the word get out to those families? And have there been any hiccups with respect to adding that day? And how are we handling the transportation issue related to the end of the school day on the schools now moving forward, especially the high schools?
President Sane, members of the committee, as far as all indications that we have received in the Office of School Administration, everything went well. I did get on yesterday, I talked with a principal that said that a couple buses was running a little bit behind schedule, but that's a normal occurrence. And I have David here who can kind of talk to us a little bit about how that have worked out as far as transportation. But we worked with the transportation company before we moved forward in this direction to make this happen. But for overall purposes, it was a normal school day and things went well. David.
Director Voss, members of the board, David Solik, Pfeiffer, Director of Business Transportation Services. We did in fact communicate with bus companies about the change. Because the change was between 5 and 12 minutes to the end of the day, we had buses already scheduled to be there. So typically we got buses scheduled to be between 5 and 10 minutes prior to the bell. What effectively happened is if they were teetering on arriving at dismissal time instead of 5 minutes prior, they ended up being there roughly 5 to 10 minutes early. So effectively, it pretty much helped operations for us because it slid the actual dismissal time later than traditionally was occurring. Given the nature of kind of the weather conditions and the transportation in this snow environment, we end up having some kind of delays throughout the course of the first tier, getting to the second tier. So in many instances, it kind of gave them a little bit more of a cushion to get to their schools in a more timely manner.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, and maybe this is an offline conversation, but I have heard from, then this is understandably a non-traditional transportation issue at one of the schools that I represent, Ronald Reagan, with respect to schedule and catching regular MCTS buses with very cold weather with respect to the end of the day. And so my suggestion is that if it might be possible for administration to speak to administration of Ronald Reagan, who may have to make accommodations for students who may now be missing their usual MCTS bus connection, to be allowed to stay in the building if it's extremely cold weather, in order to catch the next one that they won't have to be running to the bus stop for. So there is a little bit of a transportation hiccup with respect to the end of the day at this one school that I represent, and that is an atypical transportation situation, as I understand it, because there's a heavy reliance on MCTS versus yellow bus routes. So I just wanted to make sure that you understand that that might be an issue, and urge you to try to work with Ronald Reagan to resolve that issue for those students.
Superintendent.
President Sane, members of the committee, we will be more than happy. We would actually give a call this evening to Mr. Raymer and make sure that things are going, and that's for any of our schools. We want to make adjustments, and that is something that we will work on first thing tomorrow morning around making sure that all of our schools are accommodated for what we need.
Thank you.
Okay. Vice President Miller.
Yeah, thank you, President Sane. If Ms. Scopter, if you could inform me on, you talked about time and a half. Could you explain our time and a half policy? You talked about it affecting our service helpers. Does this affect, how would it work with them? Does it do Saturdays come in on that? And does it affect any other employees?
Administration?
Vice President Miller, President Sane, members of the board, it may affect a few of the food service assistants in charge and manager trainees. However, almost all of our building service helper ones already do work a 40-hour week. So any additional hours that they would be provided above 40 hours in a week would have to be paid at time and a half. And so the overtime equivalent would actually be if you worked 32 hours at time and a half, you would then actually be earning the equivalent of 48 hours of straight time of pay. So we have worked through that with nutrition services and facilities and maintenance, just to make sure that we provided at least a minimum amount of that time. So we just needed to make sure we knew the exact amount of hours and to make sure we had that minimum amount of time available to people. But anyone who is non-exempt from the Fair Labor Standards Act does receive overtime after 40 hours in a week.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. Additional comments by board members? All right. Thank you much. Madam Secretary, what's the next communication from the superintendent?
Is action on a request to approve a candidate recommendation for the Milwaukee Public Schools Foundation Board. The administration recommends that the board approve the following candidates for the MPS Foundation Board of Directors. Heidi Schneider, Managing Director, Asset Manager of Robert W. Baird.
Does the superintendent wish to make comments?
Is approval of candidate recommended for the MPS Foundation Board Director. The candidate being recommended is Heidi Schneider, Management Director for Assets Management for Robert W. Baird. I would like to thank all the members for serving on the MPS Foundation Board for their dedicated service and the time that they have spent supporting our districts through the foundation. We are prepared to answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item.
Director Voss.
As the designated member of the MPS Foundation Board, I'd like to move approval of this item. It's been my true pleasure to serve on the Foundation Board, and it's an excellent group of people who care very much about MPS and want to support MPS with adding additional contributions throughout the community to support the activities that the budget does not support currently. So it's my pleasure to move to approve this item.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Voss, seconded by Vice President Miller. Director Phillips, sorry.
Thank you, President Sane. Just a question, is the addition of a new member a result of somebody rotating off the board, or are we expanding membership right now for the foundation board?
Administration.
President Sane, Director Phillips, members of the committee, members of the board, Wendell Willis, Executive Director of the foundation. So right now we're in expansion mode for board members, but we've also had a few cycle off within the last year. So it's a little bit of both this time.
Thank you.
I just had a quick question. What is the term limits for board members on the foundation?
President Sane, members of the board, Wendell Willis, 3-year terms.
3-year terms. Okay. Thank you. All right. We have a motion, Madam Clerk, by Director Voss, seconded by Vice President Miller. Will you please call the roll?
On Director Voss's motion, seconded by Vice President Miller, to move the administration's recommendation. Director Bias.
Aye.
Director Falk.
Aye.
Director Harris.
Aye.
Vice President Miller.
Aye.
Director Phillips.
Aye.
Director Voss.
Aye.
Director Woodward.
Aye.
President Sane.
Aye.
That's 8 ayes. The motion passes.
Hey, Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the Office of Board Governance?
Yes, Mr. President, we have one communication, and that is the monthly legislative activities update. Mr. Chris Steele from our office will be giving that report. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Good evening, Mr. Steele.
Good evening, President Sane, members of the board, Chris Steele, Governmental Relations. Thank you for having the conversation this evening. It's particularly exciting as we're meeting right now. The governor is introducing his state budget. He's given the state budget address at the Capitol. Very pleased to have the Rufus King Drumline participating in that event this evening. And as we've discussed in previous meetings, given the fact that we've had the state superintendent's proposed budget, and the former state superintendent is now the current governor, we have at least a decent understanding of what we will be seeing this evening, though the final budget will be coming out later tonight. Very pleased, as we were listening to the speech just now, the governor reiterated his support for his increase in special education funding. As we've discussed in the past, under the governor's proposal, in the first year of the biennium, so next year, we would see the reimbursement rate increase from 25% to 30%, and then from 30% to 60% in the second year of the biennium. This has been a topic certainly that we've been interested in and that's attracted a lot of attention. What you have before you in the item is a copy of a report produced by the Wisconsin Policy Forum earlier this month. They do really a tremendous job laying out the issue in a way for the general public to hopefully appreciate. And it reiterates many of the points we've been making about the fact that over time, and in fact, we just double-checked with the finance office, it hasn't been since 1990 that the state supported a 60% reimbursement rate. So although there was a recent article, and understandably so, perhaps in some sense, where the governor's proposal is being referred to as a, quote, massive increase, the reality is we've seen a massive decrease in that percentage. So this is really a budget about restoring funds to public schools. All told, we're going to see a $1.4 billion proposal. We should be seeing revenue limit increases in support for special education, English language learners, students in poverty, and some other categorical areas. And it's particularly interesting this time around. There was a press conference this afternoon at the state capitol where when we look at the Speaker's Blue Ribbon Commission task force, and the governor's proposal, you could almost put together a Venn diagram of agreement where the task force is also looking at a 60% increase as one of their options, 2/3 funding, et cetera. So in some ways, the presentations being made this evening, we're almost in kind of the heat of agreement. Obviously, there's a long road to go here. The governor introduces his budget, and there's been some suggestion, well, there hasn't been some, there's been frank statements about simply throwing the governor's budget out and starting from base. But certainly, when you're talking about a $1.4 billion increase with all these specific needs attended to that are called for by the state constitution, we really are looking at a once-in-a-generation type of budget proposal here for public education. So happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, does board members have questions? Vice President Miller, followed by Falk.
Yeah, did I hear you correctly that in your Venn diagram that Speaker Voss and the governor have a lot of common area for spending? Did I hear you correctly on that?
President Sain, Director Miller, that's correct. If you take a look at the Blue Ribbon Commission Task Force report, and again, this is a process that took place over the course of a year, went out and listened to a lot of people. So certainly, if you put it in those terms, Venn diagram terms, there is in fact in the center a lot of agreement. One of the Blue Ribbon Commission report presents options, so it doesn't state a firm commitment to those things, but 60% reimbursement for students with disabilities in the Blue Ribbon Commission report, weighting students for poverty at 1.2 to provide additional revenue. English language learners weighted at 1.2. 2/3 funding again, and as we always discuss, it's 2/3 of what? But in this instance, given those options that would really be helpful, the hope is that there is sincerity there in taking a good look at what's being proposed and funding these things. We, again, as we always discuss, we've been talking with our rural school partners and our suburban partners, and this is a budget that supports all districts across the state.
Follow-up, Vice President Miller?
Yeah, just, have we ever had two-thirds funding?
President Sane, Director Miller, I think this dates back to 1993 with the advent of revenue limits and the qualified economic offer, and the state at that point, in order to make all these things work, instituted this two-thirds funding idea. But to your question, technically, we may in that moment have been as close as we've ever been, but we use the term two-thirds a lot. We really haven't hit that percentage historically, though.
Director Falk?
Thank you. What's important for the budget is not necessarily what is proposed or even passed by the legislature, but also the veto pen of the governor, which he has a lot of power. And I was curious, I believe it was in the last budget that provision was passed that if our school district was in need of improvement, that a special master could be appointed by the county exec for the running of some schools. And I was wondering if, I suspect that even if that's put into the budget again, that we have a governor who might just veto that out, but I don't know. Could you tell me what the status of that might be? Was that part of the budget?
President Sane, Director Falk, the governor has proposed eliminating the Opportunity Schools Partnership Program. The technicality here obviously is the Opportunity Schools Partnership Program is part of current law.
Okay.
And so he can't veto current law. It would have to be a part of the legislation put before him at that time.
So it is not directly part of the budget?
We anticipate that the governor's budget proposal will in fact eliminate the Opportunity Schools Partnership Program. If, however, the Joint Finance Committee passes a budget that keeps current law, meaning leaves the OSPP in place, the governor does not have an opportunity to veto what is currently in law. So he couldn't step forward today and simply say, I disagree with the OSPP and therefore I veto it. So
okay. My gut says that the Republicans themselves probably might not have too much stomach to continue given the way it worked out before, but we'll see. Thank you.
Director Baez?
Yes, Director Sine. Just wanted to mention that I was this week in the Wisconsin Association for School Board Members meeting, and this issue came up, and I think that most people throughout the state, as represented there at the meeting, were happy about the fact that the governor was proposing a series of initiatives that would significantly improve upon what we had before. So I think that that was a very positive move. There is something that I wanted to ask you about to comment on, and the question is, on the issue of charters and vouchers. I know that the governor, Governor Evers, had spoken about placing some kind of halt on the growth of those institutions. Could you comment on that? Okay.
Mr. Thiel?
President Sane, Director Baez, I haven't seen the detail of what he's proposed. What there have been the media reports about perhaps a moratorium on the expansion of the voucher program. And then one thing that we've talked about, because our board is compelled to increase property taxes to fund the voucher program, that the governor is also talking about in this budget is making transparent the cost of the voucher program. So that part we've had a lot more discussion about. I unfortunately have not seen the detail of the charter or voucher expansion pieces.
Okay. Additional comments from Mr. Thiel? Questions from Mr. Thiel?
President.
Yep, Mr. Thiel.
One last comment. Thank you, President Sane, members of the board. I should also note that from what we have been hearing, there was a Department of Children and Families meeting on Wednesday. And given the work done by the board with the One Milwaukee initiative in terms of early childhood, given the press conference earlier this year that the board and the superintendent joined with other leaders in the city, we are anticipating some funding increases for early childhood. We've discussed sheriff's funding increases and what have you, and we are hoping that there's a targeted package for the needs of Milwaukee. So I think those efforts are helping to push that forward. So thank you.
That'll be good news, Mr. Thiel. All right, thank you. Madam Secretary, what is our next item of business?
The next item is the communication from the Office of Accountability and Efficiency, the monthly report on activities. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
So we're at the independent hearing officer, madam? No?
He's going to.
Mr. Chair, members of the
Okay.
board, we are at the
OAE.
report of the OAE.
All right, thank you. Moving ahead of myself a little bit this evening. Mr. Chasen, good evening.
President Sane, good evening. Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. Before you is our monthly update. I'd just like to point out briefly that this week we had some very productive collaborative work with the administration on several of the recent board's resolutions, and you can expect reports to the respective committees next month on that work. Additionally, next month, our team is going to be presenting its annual contract compliance report and all of the performance summaries therein surrounding our hub, communities in need, or COIN, and our student engagement programs. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, is there any questions for Mr. Chasen at this time? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chasen. Keep up the good work. All right. Madam Secretary, next item of business.
The next item is action on the reports of the independent hearing officers of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors, student expulsions.
The chair will entertain a motion to accept, modify, or reject the reports of the independent hearing officers of the dates and times listed in our agenda. Vice President Miller.
I move adoption of the administration's recommendation.
Second.
Second. All right, it's been moved by Vice President Miller, seconded by Director Phillips. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, just for clarity, the motion is to accept, reject, or modify the recommendations of
I didn't say
independent hearing
accept.
officers.
I move to accept the recommendations. I move to accept the, yes, that's what I thought that's what I said. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Director Baez.
Yeah, just a quick question. I noticed in the reports that 87% still of the children that are being suspended are African American. And I understand that we're working at it and doing everything that we can. I just wanted to make sure that we, members of the board, we're conscious of the fact that we have a significant disparity still in terms of the enrollment of African American kids and the percentage of kids that are being suspended. When I went through the report, I saw that many of them are getting help, are getting services, getting sent to contracted schools, and all of that is good. But the overall situation of 87% is still, for me, a little bit hard to swallow. I just wanted to put that on the record that I think we need to be conscious of. Okay, how do we bring that down? Should be a goal that we work for.
Administration.
President Sane, members of the committee, that's one of the things that we have been working on as a team, trying to get our hands around that particular piece. One of the things that we are doing around the OCR complaint that we have is monitoring and working with young people, talking to young people. We're looking at a number of alternatives to suspensions of how we go about working through that process. That's one of the recommendations, the reason why we're bringing the Success Center for the upcoming school years. Another measure that we will use, other than having a child out of school for a day or whatever the situation may be, is the idea of having them, having someone to work with them through that process. But we're doing everything that we possibly can to develop and create safety nets around those young people to make sure that we can keep them in school and on task. And another thing that we're looking at is through the ambitious instruction piece is to amp up the rigor of what's happening in classrooms on a daily basis to make sure that it's moving students in the right direction.
Vice President Miller.
Yeah, I'd like to ask of the administration if we could get a report on the OCR, an update on the OCR next month, just to give us a sense of, to be able to drill down, even give some data around what you're addressing, Superintendent Posley.
Superintendent.
President Sane, members of the committee, we'd be more than happy to bring that report next month.
All right. We do have a motion Madam Clerk, please call a roll on Vice President Miller's motion, seconded by Director Phillips.
On the motion to accept the reports of the independent hearing officers by Vice President Miller, seconded by Director Phillips. Director Baez.
Aye.
Director Falk.
Aye.
Director Harris.
Aye.
Vice President Miller.
Aye.
Director Phillips.
Aye.
Director Voss. Aye.
Tony, thanks for bringing that.
Director Woodward. President Sane.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 1 temporarily absent. The motion passes.
All right, we'll now have the reports of the standing committees. Since public hearing was given at the committee meetings, the board, as is customary, will not be given public hearing on these reports this evening. Madam Secretary, what's the first report?
The first report is that of the Committee on Accountability, Finance, and Personnel. No items from this report have been set aside for separate consideration.
Do board members have any items they'd like to set aside from this committee? Okay, Madam Secretary, next committee.
The next report is that of the Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation. No items from this report have been set aside for separate consideration.
Do any board members have any items they would like set aside from this committee? Okay, Madam Secretary, next report.
The next report is that of the Committee on Parent and Community Engagement. No items from this report have been set aside for separate consideration.
Do board members wish to set aside any items from this committee? Okay, need a motion on the action for the balance of the reports.
I move adoption of the balance of the reports.
Second.
Been moved by Vice President Miller, seconded by Director Falk. No further comments or questions. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Vice President Miller's motion to approve the balance of the reports, seconded by Director Falk. Director Baez.
Aye.
Director Falk.
Aye.
Director Harris.
Aye.
Vice President Miller.
Aye.
Director Phillips.
Aye.
Director Voss. Director Woodward. President Sane.
Aye.
That's 6 ayes, 2 temporarily absent. The motion passes.
All right, Madam Secretary, next item.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I believe this is the point in the script where Director Phillips makes a
Statement.
statement.
Hi, Director Phillips.
Hello. Do we have anyone here that is up for promotion, appointment? Please stand.
All right.
Let's give these people a round of applause. Thank you so much for your commitment to Milwaukee Public Schools. Go forth and do great things.
Thank you for your patience.
Mr. Chair,
Madam Clerk.
members of the board, both of the gentlemen that stood up are from the Audit Department in the Office of Board Governance.
Yeah, I could tell that one guy got on a nice hat. Like Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Mr. Chair, we did not have any items set aside. The next item then would be the regular items of business, and there are 2 items. The first one is the report of the board's delegates. The first report is that of the delegate to the District Advisory Council.
That would be Director Phillips.
Thank you, President Sane. That report is before you. I'll note that thank you to Director Voss for asking that we add the meeting attendance. That is in the report. We had 69 school and community attendees representing 48 schools, and then 9 staff were present for this is the January meeting.
All right, well, thank you. All right, Madam Secretary, next report.
The next report is that from the board's delegate to the Head Start Policy Council.
That would be Director Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The report is in before you. If you have any questions, please see me. Thank you.
All right, Madam Secretary, next report.
The next report is that of the board's delegate to CISA 1.
That would be
Yeah.
Director Falk.
Yeah, thank you. The note I put in there is, it was about a half-hour meeting, and when you go through the other formalities, the meat and potatoes is only about, 15 minutes, so you got a real short report there. The only thing to let you know is I will be that delegate for only a couple more meetings, and after that, someone will have to replace me. The person to replace me, the only thing that they're going to have to initially endure is when they pull into the parking lot, the constant gunfire that is going off. As it turns out, right behind the CISA office is an outdoor gun range that is lit, and you pull in even at 9 o'clock and you're hearing this bam, 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 bam. It can be a little unsettling, but you don't hear the noise inside the building itself. But it's just, I think Director Miller could confirm that as well.
Thanks for that clarity, Director. Vice President Miller.
Yeah, the first time I went to a CISA 1 meeting, I got out of my car, went running in the building. What level of alert is this? Seriously, I had no idea.
So they were shooting at you.
Brothers call that low running there.
Thank you.
All right, okay. Thank you, Director Falk. Madam Secretary, what is the next regular item of business?
The next report is the monthly report of the President of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors.
That report is before you. The only thing I want to make note of is yesterday I had the great honor of attending a Black History program at Hawthorne Elementary School. And the theme of their program was the Black Wax Museum. And it was one of the most enjoyable events I've had since I've been on this board. The way it was set up was the kids rehearsed the Black history person that they were chosen to be. And when you walk into the room, you would see them set up, but they wouldn't say anything. So you actually had to engage the students to hear the story, and then you had to guess what Black history person they were. So you'd walk into the room and they'd be either sitting on a desk, or they'd be in costume, or they'd be doing something in the class, and you just walk up to their desk and you kind of touch the desk, which would engage them to tell you who they were. And, you know, this was going from the K-5 grades all the way up to the fifth graders. And the parents came out, Cothi was there, they had food, they served the parents afterward, and it was just a great occasion. So, you know, just wanted to give shout out to Principal Williams and her staff for putting all this together, and to the students, because they truly showed up and showed out, and it really warmed my heart. So that was just something I wanted to bring to this board, and again, I'm here to answer any questions in regards to my report. Director Baez.
Director Stein, I want to do a shout out to you. I went through the report and I was extremely impressed with the incredible number of meetings that you attended, that you represented this board and so well. I really, that's a lot of work. People do not get that sometimes, having to attend so many meetings, very early ones, late ones, weekend ones. So going through it, I went like, wow, could I do that? Probably not. So
You could do it.
Thank you so much for doing this for us, because we're going to miss that kind of representation. Thank you.
Well, I think you guys will be doing pretty well. I feel that.
I want to thank
I
you.
feel that, but thank you. Thank you, Director Baez. And I just kind of want to also add, you know, Director Baez had mentioned, you know, some of the weekend stuff. I did have an opportunity to swing over to Vincent and watch some of our kids compete in basketball. And while I was there, I had a little birdie tell me that our superintendent had an opportunity to coach a basketball game that same weekend. And I hate to inform the audience, but his team lost.
That's okay.
But he stepped in admirably. He did a great job on the fly, and you know, just hats off, Doc, because you know that Director Baez, you mentioned how much I move around. Our superintendent moves around quite a bit too, and sometimes we end up running into each other. So it was a great weekend, and just a reminder to our board is that these basketball games are happening every Saturday. We've got WCL, North Division, Vincent, JMAC, Fernwood. Any other schools that are playing, our kids are competing? And South Division as well? Yeah, so our young people are playing, I think it starts at maybe, what time do they start? Is it 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock? 9 o'clock, and they run all the way through the afternoon. So our young people are getting it in, and you know, it's just nice seeing the parents there as well, because they're engaged and involved and rooting their young folks on. So if you guys get a chance to get out, please, please, please get out. Director Voss.
Thank you, President Singh. I wanted to echo Director Bias's comments. Actually, this is a short list because it was a short month. I think some of your reports that you attend a lot of different community meetings, different functions, do school visits, and meet with community leaders as well. That's been extremely helpful to the district and extremely helpful to helping the community understand the challenges of MPS that are very unique to MPS. And I've really valued that. I mean, I realize that you're retired and have time to do those kinds of things, but I think that that is really important for the district. So I hope that we continue that legacy moving forward. And as a parent of a student that plays every Saturday on one of our MPS student teams, my daughter's birthday is 13th birthday is today. So I have a teenager who plays volleyball at Burdick every Saturday.
Yeah.
I just want to give a shout out to my daughter,
Yes.
who I'm missing tonight, so.
Deservedly so. We're going to get you out of here so you can hang out.
Thanks.
With her. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys for the kind words. Madam Secretary, are there any new items of business for referral to committee?
Communications.
Mr. Chair, we have no communications. Well, we have one communication, but no new items of business. Communication 1819C-002, requesting a hearing regarding Administrative Policy 8.51, electronic communication devices.
Okay, this will be referred to the Committee on Legislation, Rules, and Policies. Madam Secretary, are there any resolutions for referral to
We
committee?
have no resolutions this month.
Okay, let's see, moving right along. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Mr. Chair, that was the last item on tonight's agenda.
With that being the last item, and there are no further business before this board, this meeting is adjourned.
You